Hey, what's up? Welcome to my channel. This is my sketchbook painting video of a Halloween slash fall cover with pumpkins and such, as you see here. So what you will need is the sketchbook in question, some acrylic paints. For me, I used two greens, a darker and a lighter, a brown, orange, black, and white. I have a palette or a disposable plate to mix the paints on, your paintbrushes, pencils to draw, water to clean off your brushes, and a paper towel for any messes you may make. So first of all, the sketchbook I'm using had this ugly blue color cover, so I just covered the thing in black paint so I could have a nice clean base. And then I started off with drawing my actual painting that I wanted to put on there, and for me, I wanted to have little pumpkins, so I have two of them. I have a bigger one and a smaller one, and then I have some vines going around there with leaves and such. And so I'm just adding a few leaves here and there and some little swirlies and whatnot. And then at the top I put a moon in one corner, and in the other corner I put the Inktober logo because this was my Inktober sketchbook for this October, and you can totally not do this and skip this. So this is optional, but I just decided to do this for my sketchbook. And then to start off, I decided to do the green first. So I just put one layer of green on top of everything, and as you can see close up here, it's kind of not really covering well, so it took two layers of a base to cover the black, and then I went in with the shading. So I did the green first, and then the orange second, and I went in with the moon. And for this I'm actually using some metallic acrylic paints, and you can just use a plain white or whatever you have on hand for that. And now I'm doing the orange part of the pumpkins, so I'm just having a kind of darker orange, so I mixed my orange paint with the brown to make it slightly darker for the base, and I did that for both of the pumpkins. And then while everything else was drying, I decided to do the Inktober logo, and I have a fine brush and just plain white paint for this part. And throughout this whole entire thing, if you ever mess up a little bit, like you can see the top of the T there is kind of like messy, I just went in back with some black paint and I just cleaned up the edges that were rough and not as clean as I wanted them to be. So it's okay if you mess up a little bit, you can always fix it afterwards. And then for the moon there, I put some little highlights and stuff. And then for the back, I put some little white dots, like they're stars or snowflakes or something, I don't really know. But I thought it looked cool, so it wouldn't be just a plain black cover. And now for the pumpkin, you can see there, the big pumpkin is much darker than the little one because I added two layers of paint for the background there. And then for the ridges of the pumpkin, I started off with a brown paint, and then once I pretty much had the placement of them right, I went in with a little more black paint to make it a little darker. And then for the shading part, I went a little bit crazy with the shading, so you can totally make this however you feel that you want it to be. So what I did is I kind of had a gradient going from the ridges to the middle of the pumpkin. So it was darker along the ridges and then lighter. And I started off with the dark parts first, and then after that was done, I added highlights with the lighter orange, like I am doing right there. And for all of the orange pumpkin stuff, I only used two paints, so I had the lighter orange, which is kind of like a bright neonish orange, and then I used the brown, and I mixed them together, and there you go. And sorry my head kind of gets in the way a lot with this, So my apologies for blocking the view at any point here. And so I did the same exact process for the little pumpkin, but I decided to cut that out since it would make this video a little shorter. And then for the stems of the pumpkin and the vines, I did the same exact thing. I made them darker around the edges, and then I added the highlights in there too. And again, for this I used a olivey green paint, the brown, a black, and then right now I'm using kind of like a sea green color for the highlights. And throughout this whole entire thing, don't be afraid to experiment with your paints or anything. With acrylic paints, you can always water them down and make kind of like little washes on top of the things, so it wouldn't be so opaque, but it still adds a nice effect and that color if you want it. And then I'm doing the same process for all of this. And then for the leaf, I kind of made it a little darker, and then around the edges I made it a little lighter so it would pop out from that dark pumpkin background. And then for the lines, you can see here I'm making them dark at first, but in the end I decided to change it and make the leaf lines darker. I mean, not darker, lighter. So they popped out a little bit more, and I thought that looked way better, like you can see in the leaf right there. I thought that looked cool. And then I'm adding these little vine swirlies that you see on pumpkins often. And first I did it with that light green, so it would pop out, and then I went on top of that with the darker green. And that is pretty much it, so thank you very much for watching. And I also wanted to let you guys know that at the end of the month, I will have a sketchbook tour of all of my Inktober drawings of this year. So if you're interested, stick around and subscribe if you want to see that. Have fun if you make a recreation of this yourself, and I'll see you in my next video. Toodles!